Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News, and we are part of the news division of United Network. Our mission is to bring you the real news, and we release a lot of great content throughout the week. Hopefully you guys are checking that out. Hopefully you guys have become members. But if you want more information on how to become a member, what that looks like, you can visit our website at unitednetwork.earth. Even if you're not a member, know that we do release all of our content about a week later after it's put out exclusively to our members. And we put our video content on YouTube and Rumble. And if you go to our website, you'll find all the links to all of our social media, including those video sharing sites. And you can get access to everything just a little bit later, if that is better suited for you. What you're listening to right now, this is our podcast. It is a week in review podcast. So I go through the stories that we have discussed over the last week, and that includes information from our amazing field messengers, the stories that the news team and I put together for you guys, and highlights from the GIA report. And this is intended to be a way for our members, for you guys to catch up on information. Maybe you missed something throughout the week. It's also a great way to share information from UNN with other people. And if you're brand new, welcome. If you've never heard of UNN, you're going to hear things. We talk about stuff that no one else is talking about, and that's because we have access to information that very few people have access to. And that's basically the simple way to describe who we are and what we do. With any of the information we put out there, we always encourage you guys to think critically. And internally, ask yourself questions. Does this make sense? How does this vibe with other things you believe to be true? Because we're all on separate journeys here, and we're all discovering things at separate times. And it's kind of up to you, and this is the challenge, to take this information, not just from us, but from other people. It's like a giant puzzle that you're trying to put together as to what is the truth. We are living at a time where that is crucial. And we talk about discernment a lot. I know that's a big $5 word, but really that is understanding what is true in a world where there's so much misinformation. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the GIA report, because there is so much content out there. There's information everywhere you look. Everybody's got an opinion, right, about what's going on in our world. But for most of us, we have this feeling that something just isn't right. And we're on this mission, basically, to put together this puzzle and figure out what that is. And why do things seem so off? And once you go down that rabbit hole, you discover a lot of different things which lead to more questions. And hopefully here, you're going to get some of those answers as to why all this stuff is happening, why things don't make sense anymore. Because it's not really intended to make sense. A lot of things are falling apart right now. There's a lot of chaos, but you don't have to be part of that, okay? You can be the calm in the midst of the storm. And I hope that's what these reports do for you. So let's get to it. I have one announcement that I wanted to make, and this is something that was talked about talked about in, I think, a couple of the videos that were released this week. But you may notice that we have started to include our own commercials in some of our videos. And now we've always promoted like our field messengers and things like that and run different spots. But we are starting to promote some of the products because if you don't already know, we also have our own lab. And we are very much concerned about the quality of things that we put out there. So we in the past have released essential oils, and those have been of the highest quality. There's not a lot of great stuff out there. So we want to make the world a better place, and we're starting with the things that we can physically handle at this moment. So we've released stuff about essential oils. We have other supplements that are being released. And the reason we're creating commercials for this, because some of you may be like, well, I'm already a member. Why do I have to have commercials? Our content is pirated a lot. Now, we're not of the mindset that we need to go track all of that stuff down. We have done that in the past. I don't think that's very fruitful. The whole idea is to get information out there to people. So we've taken a step back from that. And instead, if our information is going to be pirated, we're not huge fans of that because obviously we miss out on the money that could be made from that because most of the UNN team is volunteer, just so you know. There are some of us, including myself, that do get paid, but most people working on this project project are volunteer. And so that money does help. It helps us to pay more people to do more things with the limited resources that we have at this time. But we're not going to, hunt all these people down. So one way to get around that is to have these commercials. So maybe if someone's watching it with, pure intentions and just came across it, that's another way they can support us. Okay, so I wanted to give you that heads up. You're probably going to see more of those kind of spots, not in this podcast. I'm not planning to do any of that here, but I just want to let you know with the videos that are being released, you're probably going to see more commercial spots, and that's the reason why. All right, so let's hop to it. Here are the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. All right, let's kick things off with our awesome field messengers. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we've got misinformation everywhere, and we believe the best way to cut through the misinformation and disinformation out there is to just talk to one another. What a concept. Let's share the stories that are really going on in our individual communities and bypass all the people that are trying to control the narrative. That's really what our field messengers are all about. And we have a team of producers and editors that will work with you if you're interested in sharing stories from your area. So you just have to tell us what's going on and we'll put everything together. We make it look good and we put it up there on the news. So it's a great way to get involved. And like I said, there is support for you if you're interested in doing this. The first thing I would probably do is go to our website. We have a section for field messengers. You can join our Telegram group and just kind of sit in and absorb the conversations that are already happening as we're helping other people with their stories. We do have meetings each week that you can join online to get more information and start making a difference in your community. So let's talk about the stories that are really impacting the people this past week. We have Amy out of New Jersey, and I love this. So Amy shares a remedy that she discovered. I believe she said a friend told her about this, but she was having a problem that we've probably all experienced. If you have pets, sometimes you have bugs around your pet food, right? In this case, it was ants. Ants were all around her pet food. She was trying to keep them away, and she discovered a friend, I believe, told her that she should try cinnamon. Now, in the past, Amy says she has tried a bunch of different things. And, you don't want to put like chemicals around your house. That's not what we're all about. But even the products that say that they are fine for the environment and organic, blah, 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 they were not working for Amy. But a friend told her, try cinnamon. So she did, and she shows us. She actually did her own little experiment. So she had some food without, cinnamon completely around it, and she had food with cinnamon, and those ants do not go near cinnamon. And it was funny, the other day, I was just talking to my mom because they get, I'm hanging out with my parents and my kids for the summer and just hanging out with relatives and family and just enjoying the summer. And so she was telling me she was getting all these kind of bugs, including ants. And I said, I just saw a field messenger report about this, and maybe you should try cinnamon. I would much rather have cinnamon around my house than any of those other nasty chemicals. So if that is something that you are dealing with, maybe give it a try. Emma out of Spain talks about the effect of our bodies when we hear live music. And I thought she obviously had to do some research for this story. So Emma, I really appreciate that. But she talks about how live music offers amazing mental and physical benefits for the body, like reducing stress and boosting happiness. And she even takes us to some live performances in her area. And we get to see people, just kind of hanging out, enjoying the music. But it does wonders. And there are studies out there that prove this. It helps with your connection to others, mental stimulation, all that good stuff. Now, on the other hand, and I don't know if Emma really went into this, it depends on the kind of music, right? Because we know over the years, our music, even the frequency in which our music is recorded, has been changed. And it has specifically been changed to cause commotion, basically, within your body. It is not fluent with your body unless it's of certain hertz. And it's interesting because it could just be a little bit off and it does something entirely different to your body. So yes, live music is great. It's fun to hang around other people and just have a good time, but watch that frequency as well. Agwumba Abasi from Nigeria talks about Some of the farming challenges that a local farm is having. They're doing a lot of really good things. They're doing things like snail farming, honey production, which we know there's a gazillion uses for honey. And he makes a point to talk about how it's real honey, like it's straight from the bee. They don't do anything to it. They also grow rice and cassava. And they are also looking at different ways to collaborate. There's been some challenges along the way. And I think it's good for us to share this kind of information. Recently, Kim has been talking about in the GIA report about our food supply and how important it is for us to be able to help each other out with food, because things are getting a little wonky and we're not sure where the food supply and, where the chains and everything are going to, where the breakdown's going to happen and how it's going to happen. So doing stories like this, it's important for us to all see, okay, this is what one neighborhood, one village is dealing with. Maybe you can apply that in your own village or in your own neighborhood. So thank you, Agwumba Abasi, for sharing this information. Okay, Wayne out of Mexico. He's usually out of Arizona, but he takes a lot of trips down to Mexico. Takes us to a copper shop. Did you know that copper is durable and it's naturally antimicrobial? I encourage you guys to do, if you haven't already done, a little deep dive on copper. Have you ever wondered why we have copper cups, copper pans, things like that? These are all things that Wayne shows us in this store. Do a little deep dive on the benefits of copper, because it's something that really hasn't been explored too much. It's not in mainstream news all that much. When we think about copper, we may think of the beauty of it, but what about the health benefits of it? So, and by the way, a little tip for those of you who already have copper, Wayne talks about lemon juice and a rag is really all you need to clean the copper, because even the oils in our hands, they can kind of tarnish it. I love simple fixes for things like that. So anyways, you want to learn all about copper and see some beautiful pieces, check out Wayne's video. Karen out of Ireland talks about a Rico ring, which is an alternative kind of market. So we're talking about like farmers markets, right? So it's a different type of market where people in the community can produce, buy, and sell homegrown food products pretty much on their own. Because if you've ever tried to run a larger event, it doesn't matter if it's a farmer's market or anything, there are usually a lot of restrictions depending on where you live of what you can and cannot do. But when you're just trying to get together with other human beings and swap or pay for certain things, vegetables or other items, then you want it to be as simple as possible. Well, maybe a Rico ring is something that you should look up. I mean, it is a very simple version of a farmer's market. It doesn't take all of the planning. She said this idea originally came from Finland, and they basically create these meetup spots, and people come together and do their transactions. It's all done in 30 minutes. You don't have to be waiting out in the hot sun for 8 hours for a farmer's market or whatever. And it's really about building our own support system and taking care of one another. Okay, Ags out of Denmark takes us to a classic car meet. We've got a couple stories this week about classic cars. I'm not a car person, but I do appreciate when I drive past these different kind of shows. Usually in the US, it's like on the weekend, right? And you see all these old cars. I think that's kind of cool. It's very nostalgic. And one of the things I've always said about cars today is that they all kind of look alike. It's like, oh, maybe you tried a different color, but every car kind of looks the same, and I like more creativity than that. But anyway, if you want to see some really cool cars, Ags is in Denmark, like I said, and he takes us to one of those shows. And the one interesting thing that I got from this video is where this takes place. The city, I want to call it a city. I don't know if it's officially a city, but it's called Roskilde. And translated means praise source. And I just thought that was really pretty. This particular car show meets every Thursday. So if you're in the area, you may want to check it out. Okay, Kim out of Iowa tells us more about Feed Iowa First and their project to support immigrant farmers in the area. So what's happening is you have these immigrant farmers that have a lot of practical experience. They had farms in their original countries, and they are helping these farmers that are now in the U.S. with land. So it's kind of communal land. I think they have their own sections of it, but they don't have to have land in their backyard, let's say. And they help these farmers. They provide the land. They also help them with seeding and farming equipment. And it allows the farmers to do what they love to do, to feed their families and perhaps extended families. And they're actually growing crops native to their land, which I thought was really interesting. And then there's always extras. So what this project does is it then takes the extras and it goes into Feed Iowa First, and they are distributing this to all of the communities in their area, and sometimes through farmers market type experiences or events, and sometimes it's directly to the people. So it's a win-win, right? Jerry out of Australia, here's another motor show. So he takes us to Australia's largest indoor motor show. And it's not just about classic cars, though. We have everything from hydroplanes, we've got tractors. It's really a fun event for the whole family. And the funds there go to support the local Rotary Club. And it's really kind of a celebration of automotive history. So that's kind of a fun video to check out. And finally, we have Monica out of Romania. And this was really cool. Monica said in her story that this story idea came from a dream that she had, that she was supposed to do a field messenger report specifically about the rich oil history of Romania. And in fact, she says it was one of the first countries to produce crude oil, and it's been used obviously in a lot of different ways since then. And I think she went to an actual museum. So you see a lot of artifacts and things like that that show the history of crude oil in Romania. And it's pretty fascinating. And it's not, by the way, it's not just for like cars and automotive things. She talks about some of the economic purposes for it, medicinal purposes for this oil. So it can be used in a lot of different ways. Moving on to some of the more in-depth news stories that the team and I were working on for you guys this week. Let's kick things off with mobile phone theft, which is surging in the UK. Nearly 1 in 3 adults report a stolen device. This was back in 2024, but that is up sharply from the previous year. And these thefts go far beyond just an inconvenience of not having their phones, because phones now store everything from bank accounts to personal photos, making them prime targets for identity theft and financial fraud. Police are responding, and they're doing that in different ways. We talk about this in the piece, but things like high-speed e-bikes are now being used to chase thieves, to kind of get in the places that cars can't go. And tech companies are also rolling out some solutions like remote kill switches to lock stolen devices instantly.
Scenes like this have more than doubled in England and Wales over the last year. Around 78,000 people had their phone or bag snatched off them on the street, and less than 1% of cases resulted in a person being charged. And almost 82% of investigations were closed without a suspect being found, government figures show. It's now calling on tech companies to design phones that they can be permanently disabled if they're stolen, to prevent it being sold on. It also wants the police to get more intelligence on who's stealing the phones and where they end up. The government thinks a growing demand for second-hand phones, here in the UK and abroad, is driving the rise in theft.
Risky habits, especially amongst young people, frequently using phones in public, you know that people are always on their phones, well, that's making matters worse. And similar trends are emerging in cities worldwide, from New York to Johannesburg. Young entrepreneurs are proving age is no barrier to success, with many launching innovative businesses before even finishing high school. Fueled by passion and resourcefulness, Gen Z is diving into entrepreneurship earlier than ever. 67% say they want to start their own ventures. While juggling school and skeptical parents, these teens are turning to online learning, global freelance networks, and social media to build brands and launch ideas.
Most people think being young is a disadvantage when starting a business, but here's why it's your biggest strength. You have a built-in audience at your school and in your family, and word of mouth is one of the best ways to sell things. You can gain financial independence and set yourself up for life, and you're going to learn some of the most valuable skills and become the best version of yourself. You also have access to free resources and support. Many schools offer entrepreneurial courses, and there are tons of free online resources where you can learn how to start a business. And of course, you don't have a lot of responsibilities, bills, or kids to take care of, so it's kind of the perfect time to take big risks.
Supportive programs like Georgia's Flex initiative are helping them gain real-world business skills, mentorship, and even funding. Despite challenges like limited experience or investor doubts, their creativity, adaptability, and drive are helping them break through and shape the future of business. Japan is facing a major rice shortage, with prices more than doubling and store shelves emptying, a crisis fueled by a poor 2023 harvest due to extreme heat, panic buying after a 2024 earthquake, and rising demand from tourists. Despite rice being central to Japan's culture and cuisine, government responses have been slow, with outdated data and initial stockpile releases failing to ease consumer prices. Imports have surged, especially from the U.S. and Asia, but high tariffs limit their impact.
Japan is in a situation that it really didn't expect to be in. Prices of rice have really soared. They're up about 100% since this time last year. So up and down the country in Japan, we've seen queues for rice, and that has coincided with the release of rice from the strategic reserves. This is a very rare event in Japan, but what it's doing is it's releasing old rice that's been set aside at cheaper prices than are currently available in most supermarkets. The problem we've got is that structurally, the way that rice is produced and distributed in Japan is not really fit for purpose. In other countries, you just incentivize farmers by handing out subsidies. Japanese farmers have not had exactly those subsidies. And so what's happened is that the government has actually sort of incentivized farmers to grow less rice.
Even as the government now sells stockpiled rice directly to retailers, prices remain high and supplies tight, leaving many Japanese households struggling to afford this essential staple. Youth unemployment in Indonesia is soaring, especially amongst Gen Z, with more than 16% of those ages 15 to 24 unable to find work, despite many holding degrees. A mismatch between outdated education systems and current job market demands leaves graduates unprepared, while those with lower education levels often fare better in finding work. Digital skills and hands-on experience now matter more than diplomas, pushing many young Indonesians into gig work or low-skilled jobs just to make ends meet.
Studies have shown that half of those starting in low-tier informal jobs remain there for the long term.
Unfortunately, for most people, they have not the luxury to wait to get the high-skill, high-paid job. And we don't have strong social protection, and they have to pay for their necessities. So what they have to do, whatever job is available. You see that ride-hailing motorcycle driver, he could be a university graduate, meaning that he works way below his skills. Unfortunately, this means that most people will stay in the low-skill, low-paid jobs for the rest of their life.
So if this is widespread, what does this mean for the future of Indonesia and its youth?
Well, because people work below their capacity, below their skill, it means that the productivity is lower than the potential.
Rural youth face even greater hurdles, with farmland disappearing and city migration proving costly and unsustainable. As unemployment drags on, the mental health toll grows, highlighting the urgent need for better education, training, and job access. Improperly discarding batteries, especially rechargeable lithium-ion ones, poses serious risks to health, safety, and the environment. These batteries, found in everyday items like phones and power tools, contain toxic chemicals and can spark fires if crushed or overheated, making them dangerous in regular trash or recycling bins. Waste facilities worldwide are reporting a rising number of fires, with places like Australia experiencing garbage truck blazes that endanger lives and strain public resources. In response, countries are ramping up battery recycling programs and passing stricter laws, from Australia's B-Cycle to Europe's producer accountability rules and North America's widespread drop-off networks.
In an Australian first, the New South Wales government is pushing to regulate lithium-ion batteries after hundreds of fires in homes, waste facilities and garbage trucks. If passed, suppliers will have to register battery products and ensure safe disposal or recycling through dedicated collection points. They'll also be responsible for running public education campaigns to improve awareness. The laws will also apply to smaller batteries found in devices like electric toothbrushes and children's toys.
Animal therapy is proving to be a powerful tool for healing, offering emotional support and mental health benefits through the comforting presence of pets like dogs, cats, and even horses. From easing anxiety and depression to improving symptoms of PTSD, autism, and dementia, research shows interacting with animals can boost mood, lower stress, and promote physical activity. Therapy animals create safe, non-judgmental spaces that can help children open up, support addiction recovery, and bring companionship to seniors struggling with loneliness.
Animal-assisted therapy is being able to incorporate any kind of animal into the therapeutic process to allow for safer and gentle connection with the therapist and the client. So anytime we're able to bring an animal into a session, it allows the client's nervous system to downregulate and allows them to be vulnerable in a way that they might not be in a different or more traditional therapeutic setting. So when they're able to connect with an animal, they might be able to access different parts of the therapeutic process that they're working on in processing depression or anxiety or even social functioning. When our body is relaxed, we're able to integrate more of what we're learning in the program, and that too creates sustainability for our clients.
While it's not the right fit for everyone, for many, the bond with a therapy animal can make a life-changing difference. South Africa is facing a growing childhood obesity crisis, with rates expected to double by 2030 if aggressive junk food marketing continues unchecked. Ultra-processed foods loaded with sugar, salt, and fat are being heavily promoted to children through colorful packaging, mascots, and even branded school donations. Tactics designed to build lifelong brand loyalty.
There was a conversation online about a controversial donation of mobile desks by companies and NGOs in the Eastern Cape. On the same day that this donation was made in the Eastern Cape, the Minister of Basic Education handed over an unspecified amount of these mobile desks. This time they were branded by McDonald's to a school in the Western Cape. These desks are made by a company known as My Desk Global, a company which was founded in 2018 and is sponsored by corporations and has partnerships with the Department of Science and Innovation and the Department of Basic Education. Did you see these desks? Did you get an opportunity to see this story? What do you think about them? You know, the kids have to carry them on their backs, go home with them, come back with them. Some kids have to swim over rivers in rural areas. What do you think? There was a lot of discourse about these desks.
Despite existing consumer protection laws, weak enforcement allows misleading advertising to thrive. A new proposed regulation, R3337, aims to change that by banning child-targeted marketing and requiring clear warning labels, but it's facing delays and industry pushback. Advocates stress that protecting kids from a manipulative food environment is critical and urgent. Moldova is facing a severe population crisis, shrinking faster than any other country due to mass emigration, low birth rates, and high mortality. With more than 1 million citizens living abroad and a rapidly aging population, the country is grappling with worker shortages, declining rural services, and long-term economic strain. The situation is worsened by Moldova's ongoing economic struggles, including fallout from the 2008 financial crisis and a major banking scandal. Birth rates have dropped significantly, and each young person who leaves represents a major loss in the future tax revenue and skilled labor.
Moldova is Europe's poorest country by GDP per capita, with poverty rate close to 15%. Its economy heavily relies on agriculture and remittances from Moldovans working abroad. Political instability and rampant corruption hinder investment and growth. Underfunded schools and hospitals force many to seek better opportunities abroad. Moldova's lack of economic variety keeps its economy fragile and vulnerable to external shocks. The median household income is about $4,000 USD annually, and the median home values are around $30,000 USD. The country's economy is challenged by high immigration rates, low wages, and a significant reliance on agricultural exports and remittances.
Experts warn the country must act quickly, suggesting targeted policies like scholarships, housing support, and better local job prospects to retain and attract young people. And finally, introducing bilingual education early gives children a powerful advantage, helping them connect across cultures, boost brain development, and open doors in both their personal and professional lives. Research shows young children are specially equipped to learn multiple languages, making early exposure ideal for fluency and long-term retention. While bilingual education takes different forms around the world, common in Europe, and expanding in places like Australia, and it is still debated in parts of the U.S.
According to United Nations figures, up to 80% of the world's population speaks at least 2 languages, and 3 languages are not uncommon.
You have way more students speaking multi-languages in the world than students speaking just one language. It's just that it happened that, in France or in the US, it's not the case. But we should all have access to multilinguals.
1/5 of the United States population describes themselves as bilingual. Bilingualism is a hallmark of the 21st century. In the past 50 years, neuroscientists and psychologists have uncovered a wealth of scientific evidence to support the hypothesis that learning another language at a young age strengthens cognitive and linguistic development in children. As a result of these cognitive boosts received early in life, bilingual students perform highly in academic settings, and the long-term benefits are simply remarkable.
Those benefits are clear. It's shown to build stronger relationships, more career opportunities, and greater global awareness. Success requires consistency, whether through bilingual schools, immersion programs, or everyday use at home. All right, let's talk about some highlights from this week's Global Intelligence Agency reports. And the head of the GIA is Kim Gogan. So she comes on, gives us some reports throughout the week, and things have been quite busy. So Monday, we didn't have a report, but she did put out a message on Telegram. So I'll go ahead and read that for you guys now. It says, "We are still working tonight." It's looking like it's going to be a late one. "This weekend, we had a massive influx of all kinds of operatives, helicopters, unregistered, and the like for the last 72 hours. It appeared to them there was a portal about to open. This caused a lot of worldwide issues over the weekend, including discomfort for some people. Some of the changes were positive for us. We believe we have finally found GHQ or global headquarters locations for the SSP. Finally, the cloaking was off due to the breakdown of the simulations. Further, a long-standing covenant, which created time, expired at dawn yesterday. The old cryptex resurfaced, and an attempt to open it by the Mitter Corporation occurred at Peterson Air Force Base. I'll give you a full brief on Wednesday. All right, so let's talk about Wednesday. As Kim mentioned in that statement that I just read, there was a massive amount of people coming into the Durango area. So we're talking about Colorado now. And we're specifically talking about an area in the Silverton area, which is a separate, I'm going to call it a city. Not sure if it's actually incorporated as a city, but I was actually there about, less than a year ago. So last October, I was there, and I can confirm what Kim's about to tell you. That is a very interesting place. Okay, it almost feels like when you go into Silverton, even now, and I know it's changed a lot over the years, but even now, when you go there, you feel like you have entered, it's It's almost like the Twilight Zone. Like, I was there with Mike and with Natalie, for those of you who know other members of our team, and it was like everything was fake. We felt like we just walked onto a movie set, because it is a place like no other. There's definitely a different feeling there, and this explains why. So here's Kim talking about what happened and why there was this massive influx of deep state coming into the Durango area within the last week.
We have a massive influx of people here in Durango, and it's not just because it's summer and, it's kind of a tourist season around here. But we have a lot of cargo planes coming in, military cargo planes full of people. We've had a lot of jets. We've had a lot of military jets. We've had a lot of helicopters. Some don't even appear on the radar anywhere that they even exist, even though we're staring at them. So it's just been an interesting weekend here overall. Some of the people that have arrived are here because they were expecting an event here. Now, remember, a lot of the SSP or Secret Space Program folks are aware of some of the secrets, not all, but some of the secrets of the Rocky Mountains. And Durango is a very interesting place, and it's very interesting for a number of reasons. Number one, it's halfway between Dulce and Silverton. The entire area here, all the way over to Pagosa Springs and over to Ouray, is full of a lot of very ancient technologies and portals. All kinds of things exist here. The Secret Space Program operatives are very well aware of what goes on here for more than one reason, obviously. There is some information on the internet of an operative or former operative who has now passed away. I think his name was Phil Schneider. And he talks about the war in Dulce in detail. And a lot of the, let's call them operatives around here that live here, were actually offered retirement here. Not only because it is a protective zone, but they were also offered retirement here in order to protect what they believed was assets that lie in the region. Now, in part, that information is true. There is what we call a global super site down the street in Silverton, which means it has a tremendous amount exceeding over $100 trillion in worth of minerals, some very rare, and then of course gold and silver and germanium and a bunch of other minerals that you can't really find anywhere else. Now, because all of these minerals lie in a small, relatively small area in the region, they are, those minerals and the combination of those minerals made it an ideal location for a portal, which has been open there or had been open there for thousands or hundreds of thousands of years. So just because we call it a mining town and it looks real cute and you can ride this train there, that doesn't mean it doesn't hold its own secrets. When I first got here, I did take a trip up to Silverton. I've been up there many, many times, but I did take a trip up to Silverton, and I immediately noticed that it was the weirdest place I've ever been. As we came down over the hill from about 12,000 feet down to about 9,800 feet or so where Silverton lies, I immediately saw a portal, like a very large one. And the town itself appeared to be kind of like a neutral zone, and I knew that at the time. Little did I know what that really meant. So the center of the town was where both dark beings and light beings could and would cohabitate. There are also a lot of operatives up there. We have seen an influx of various groups over the years that would have some access to things that were there. And as you come down over the hill from Durango to Silverton, you notice on the right-hand side, the mountain is very dark, and you can literally see things crawling on the mountain, at least at that time. And on the other side of Silverton, you would notice that the mountains are very light, meaning they're almost golden, they almost glow in the sun. And part of that, the reason for that is because you had beings of both types that would cohabitate there. And you could clearly, if you have eyes to see, you could clearly see them, you know, all over. You might think if you were visiting there, you might think you're talking to a person, and it's really not a person. And you can tell the difference. And I've had conversations with some of those people and non-people up there. So interesting place. Today, it's changed a lot. I've been here for, almost 10 years now, actually. And boy, time flies when you're not having any fun. But when you go there, if you do have the ability to go there, you'll see one of the most interesting places in the United States, if not the entire world. And it's still very interesting. And this weekend, it got a whole lot more interesting. Well, there's been portal wars there for quite a long time. We've closed the portal. You know, someone tries to open it back up again. We've closed the portal. We've cleaned up space junk. We've cleaned up people in stasis, beings in stasis up there. We've done a lot of cleaning there. And a lot of cleaning in other areas near about the halfway point where there's a ski resort called Purgatory, or now called Durango Mountain. And there was a lot of things there as well, and various mountains in the surrounding area, all the way to you get to Ure. I've had a lot of interesting personal experiences up there, and not all the beings are bad. Like I said, you know, you've got a mixture. You had a mixture of both. Right now, there's really not a whole lot of folks there at this time, but you know, it changes. And this weekend, there was an occurrence that happened in Durango. And when I say in Durango, I mean the entire area. If you were to look at a map, you would see it would go, the diameter, the widest parts would go from Ure all the way to Pagosa Springs. So that would encompass Dulce and the entire area here. So it's about 118 to 120 mile diameter in total, maybe a little bit more than that. And oh boy, Marduk, I'll tell you, he never goes away. So this entire area became one giant cluster of portals. There's been a number of times we've seen portals in Silverton, and a number of times, you know, we've seen things in Dulce, but nothing like we saw this weekend. It caused major disturbances, at least for myself and my person, partially because, well, you know, Marduk has a way of connecting things to my person. I don't know, you know. You know, it's kind of like the deep state on a lower level. They like to use me for a lot of things, but they don't want to talk to me for, you know, or anything, or negotiate in any way, or try to make some kind of a deal. So in this particular case, it was a rather large reactor. And this is what we would call a silver portal. And by silver, we aren't referring to the metal. We are talking about something you would consider that was made of both dark and light gold. Now, we often refer to the light and essence and breath of source as gold, but in this particular case, this is what you would call false gold or false light, and false dark or false black gold, I guess you would say. And it could have caused a lot of problems. It definitely took a lot of work, even all the way up until today, to try to get that system that attempts to open here constantly cleaned up. And part of the reason why this happened at this time had nothing to do with what the deep state did, although a lot of the visitors here came here for that portal. They would like to control it. They would like to access it. They would like to I don't know, figure that, for them, they think everything is for them. Why did this portal open here? Are they trying to protect a planet? Absolutely not. Are they trying to get access to things, whether it's AI systems or other worlds? Most definitely. You see, because there's a lot of things that we learned about the secret space program operatives over the last couple of days that, some of which we knew, we just didn't realize how deeply they were involved. And I would say they have more knowledge about the crazy war on this planet than most people walking the earth. However, they do not have a lot of knowledge as it relates to the inner workings of beings that were much higher in the hierarchy of not only Earth, but the omniverse that they actually worked with and worked for. As I've said, some of them believe that they're doing the right thing and some of them believe that they're doing the wrong thing. But unfortunately, for both sides, they are all doing the wrong thing. Meaning, you're working for the false light and not the light in any way, shape, or form. That false light will turn on you faster than anything. And I've seen it happen if you don't know the difference. So over the weekend, things that we also discovered as a part of this, because you see, the only portal that opened on the planet that was worth everything to them was this one, but there were some other smaller ones that became evident. And a lot of this had to do with the Kingdom Wars. Now, the SSP, as far as the category of where they sit, at least in the higher ranks, you would call them the Knights of the Tables, or the Tables in some cases. You would say that they had the right on behalf of kingdom owners. They were not kingdom owners. They never have been kingdom owners. They would like to be kingdom owners, but they are not. They are just the Knights of the Tables. But given the fact that the remaining people on this planet that are the dragons, so to speak, the Order of the Dragons, they have some knowledge of black magic, probably quite a bit. They have some knowledge of what it's like to sit in a kingdom seat, but they don't have a whole lot of knowledge as to the day-to-day operations. Unfortunately, there's something wrong with these knights' head. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a program. You can't get them to understand what they're doing. Even when you explain it in detail to them, you can't get them to understand that even though something shows up, it's showing up in a simulation. It's not showing up in this plane of existence, per se. Does it cause a disturbance? Yes. Does it look like a shiny new toy for the deep state and for the knights? Yes. It looks wonderful for them, and they get so excited when they see things like this happening because they really think this is it for them, that they can now have the power. But in reality, I can tell you with every fiber of my being and with 100% honesty, I'm not running an operation against these people or anything. Quite frankly, I could care less where they go and what they do at this point. But they need to understand that these people, I know the actual kingdom people. Most all of them I've run across, and that's on the good or the better side, I should say, and the darker side, and all of the councils that have been fighting against them all these years. I know these people, not people. I use the term people lightly. These people have never had the ability to talk to these others, not a kingdom owner directly. As a knight, you would have never really, you might have gotten orders and instructions and those types of things, but you would never have the ability to actually talk to anybody who had real power on this planet. All they know is that those beings had power and they would like to have it.
So let's talk a little bit more about these knights. I find it very interesting. I feel like, talk about going back in time with Silverton. I feel like we have just entered medieval times, right? We're talking about knights, we're talking about kingdoms. When Kim talks about kingdoms, she's talking about simulations. All right. And these knights, like she just explained, are essentially the secret space program operatives, people that are part of that whole world, which in itself, a whole sci-fi series should be written about the history of all of that. Probably has been. It probably shows up in all of our movies and TV shows anyways. But I want to play another soundbite of simulations, about how the Knights / the SSP operated within these simulations and really the limitations behind them. Because yes, simulations were used to control humanity, but we really have the upper hand because as it turns out, simulations cannot generate their own energy. Here's Kim with more.
We're seeing what's happening with the knights and the dragons play out in mainstream media. And I'm going to explain a little bit about why I know that's happening. So kingdoms come in many colors, and each color has many kingdoms to it. These kingdoms are defined as also can also be defined as, for example, the kingdom of day, the kingdom of night, the kingdom of the solstice, the kingdom of 2025, the kingdom of this timeline or that timeline, and where they overlap and cross. Well, all those kingdoms were not run by people at all. Some of them ran multiple kingdoms and what we call simulations. Simulations can only mirror reality. They can't create in reality. They can't change reality. The only thing they can do is overlay it. So when it comes to the Knights or the secret space program, ACIO militaries and operatives, they had the ability and have had the ability to granted to them, and I say this, granted to them by kingdom owners or simulation owners to whereby they could have military bases that would come and go from the Earth sphere. Let's call it the Earth sphere, the many planes and densities of Earth. They have also been trained to operate AI systems when it suited the simulation owner. If it doesn't suit the simulation owner, you don't access it. Now, whether they want to believe me or not, they have seen that happen to them for many, many years now. They pretty much lost access to everything the same time that the master simulator owner, Marduk, he was the creator of a lot of the programs, whoever was playing that role at the time. And the master simulator owners lost a lot of access in 2007. When they lost access, so did the deep state. The deep state, I have spoken to these operatives myself, who have told me they lost access to their accounts back in March of 2007, could not access anything. They went to places like Panama trying to access those accounts, and in Switzerland trying to access those accounts, and still to this very day, they are still in the Philippines, in China, and Indonesia, searching everywhere for assets, looking for someone that can open a vault, trying to get access to various things. And you know what? Hasn't worked out yet. And it's now 2025. So, well, they're almost 20 years into this, unfortunately, trying to get access. Marduk used me to get access for a long time. You see, because everything comes out of systems that are created in reality as it relates to incoming new energy into the realm. Now, there have been many simulator and overlays that could block the energy coming into the realm that we know as Earth. which then gets converted into money when it arrives. But new creation, new energy, new money, new assets, real assets can only come from reality. It cannot come from a simulation. And I'm saying this very slowly and carefully so you too can understand why it's so hard to get a dollar to you. You see, every simulation has its own version of financial systems. True. It has overlays. True. However, even a simulation owner cannot pull from reality without authorization from reality to do so. My system exists in reality, therefore I can create unlimited energy and unlimited money. Now, in the simulation, digital cash, central bank digital currencies, I get 9,000 videos a day from people saying, oh my God, it's coming. It's not coming because you will disrupt the energy system. Even in simulators, simulators need energy. They need energy. Did I tell you they need energy? Even your human energy does not exist in a simulation. The only thing you can have in a simulation is debt. See, because you, as a human being, primarily exist in reality. You exist in reality. You have simulated versions of you that your energy in reality feeds. Your simulated version of yourself, your overlays, over souls, over this, do not generate any energy. How's that for interesting? If you ever were severed from yourself and from reality, therefore fully separated from source, you would not generate any energy. Therefore, you are no longer a battery. Marduk understood this. The kingdom owners understood this. Without reality, they could not have a simulation. The whole financial system of planet Earth that every one of these crazy knights and dragons and cyberlife people and everybody wants to control, they don't understand that. None of the systems that they operate access reality. The portal that opened up here this weekend does not access reality. It will not do it. It can't do it. You can go to 9,000 simulated Earths, which they do. They used to. They say that there's bases on Mars and bases on Venus, and I'm sure you've seen all of this on the internet. And yeah, I'm going to say yes and no. Your particular simulation that you are operating in on any given moment in time probably has a simulation overlay on Venus that you could go back and forth to. Now, there were portals on Earth in the simulation, as there always were, where you could travel from simulation to simulation. However, you could not make it into reality. No, you can't. You exist in reality. You have a tie to reality, and I even question your humanness at this point, as far as the deep state is concerned, but you cannot do what you want to do, what the deep state wants to do in reality, because that is the kingdom of source. It's something that has never been compromised, merely overlaid, and that was it. So if they were to go there, it doesn't serve a purpose to them because they cannot extract money. They cannot extract power. They cannot overpower that kingdom owner. Absolutely not.
In that statement that I read for you guys from Monday, Kim mentioned that they had finally found the global headquarter location for the SSP. So that's the final soundbite that I'm going to play for you guys today. This was located in New York, in the United States, and it's interesting how this operated. And I want to just let Kim tell you more about it, and also how these simulations are going away, and how if you're caught in a simulation, not meaning us as humanity that are just part of the simulation, but the SSP that are going back and forth between simulations, because they could do that. So when you hear people online talking about, oh, you know, the super soldiers, they're on the moon, they're on Venus, you know, they're on Mars, whatever, all these different places. Yes and no, okay? Because that's a simulation. And they did have the ability to jump back and forth between simulations, but that is not reality. So if the simulations are going away and you're caught, that's not good news for you. Here's Kim.
Most of New York, and it's part of the reason why it's a hotbed for the financial system. It was a hotbed for a lot of things, but New York had a very large command and control center that was utilized by the Global Headquarters / SSP, or Secret Space Program, ACIO folks. And it was probably one of the largest ones on Earth I've ever seen. Now, Earth, as you know, lives in reality. But Earth has also had many kingdom simulation owners. So we thought that, well, there's 5 owners of Earth. Well, there was, as it related to the kingdom of reality, Earth. But as it relates to simulations, you had millions of overlays. Now, in this command and control center, basically what they could see was simulations tied together by, for lack of a better term, a cord or a thread, a wormhole, a quantum tunnel. And they could see all the simulations of Earth that were going on simultaneously. Therefore, they had the ability to travel from simulation to simulation anytime they wanted to. Now, to some limited degree, they did have access to the lower astral of reality, limited degree. However, they could only exist there for a certain amount of time. So they would come and go regularly. As it relates to a reality, Earth, if they are jumping from a simulation to a simulation to a simulation, and they can only remain in a simulation for a certain amount of time before they must depart it, or they will age. They'll age rapidly. So one of the things that happened this weekend when that headquarters was no longer, let's just say, and the kingdoms or various simulations have been going away rapidly at this point, what we consider rapidly, is they would get squeezed out of simulations. Some people got stuck here. A lot of them are aging ridiculously fast. I don't know how long they're going to survive. Meaning, you know, if you were your body was 21 today, it might be 81 tomorrow. I mean, it's happening that fast. The other thing that happened was, as some of them got squeezed out, because remember, you know, they have these bases that don't really exist on other planets. They just exist on other simulations. They got squeezed out of their respective locations as well, because there are actual living humans that are going back and forth, you know, between all these places. So that being said, they got squeezed out and ended up getting stuck here in this particular simulation, you know, overlay, and kind of half in reality and half out. And, you know, they didn't understand what was happening. Well, what's happening is your simulation kingdom is going away. Therefore, you get stuck. When you get stuck here, you don't belong here, you go away from here. And then you're gone from all the simulations at the same time. That's kind of how it works here.
Yeah, so the moral of the story is, Deep State, do not get caught in between simulations right now. It is a very dangerous place to be. All right, Kim also on Friday did another report. We've been trying to do these live Q&As about once a month. And so Fridays was another live. And I'm not going to play any sound bites from that because Kim took that opportunity to really give a more general report to people who are following sources online that aren't to their benefit. Okay, so I'm talking about the Q phenomenon. I'm talking about anyone that thinks that anyone in politics right now is saving babies and, rescuing the planet from certain death. Like, it's just not happening. Now, most of the people that check in and, certainly our members that listen to our reports all the time, you already know this. And so the live report was live in multiple places, including YouTube, and that report is out there for you. So I think it's a really good report to listen to for anyone who thinks that is basically giving their power away to another group and thinks that someone's going to come and save them. If you know those kind of people, that's probably a great report to share. But for our audience and for these purposes, I'm just going to let you guys check that out on your own. It's already out there and you can listen to the full report. You can just go to our YouTube channel, check it out there. If you're a member, it's already up on our app. And that wraps up the rundown for today. Again, you guys want more information, check out our website, unitednetwork.earth. I encourage you guys to consider becoming members and supporting our team. That gives you instant access to all of our news updates the moment they come out, our New Earth interviews, the full GIA reports, and all things restoration. This is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.